What's going on, animators? Aaron here from CG RIFF, and excited to have all of you joining us for episode 15 of the CG RIFF Animation Podcast. And you guys are in for a big treat tonight because our guest in the hot seat this go round is none other than Janel Drewis, who's joining us tonight. We're so excited to sit down and hear a little bit about her journey. Janel's been in the industry many years and has touched most of the major studios. She was up at Sony for a while, came through Pixar for a bit. We were actually next door neighbors for a very brief stint over at Pixar. She was at Disney for a bit, DreamWorks, you name it. She's currently over at Meta. And so we're going to hear all about her journey, and she's got a lot of really inspirational takes that we hope will inspire all the listeners. So thank you so much, Janel, for being here tonight. I'm excited to get into it with you. Hi.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's super exciting. I've never done a podcast like this before, so it's very exciting.
Oh, good. We've got the CG RIFF exclusive. So we're going to have a lot of fun. So buckle up and let's get right into it. So let's take it back to the beginning. We like to kind of start at the beginning, kind of go chronologically here. So tell the listeners out there, where did you grow up and how did you find your way into animation? Like what role did art and animation play, maybe in your early life, and how did you find your way to the industry?
Sure. I grew up in a town called Folsom, California, it's right outside Sacramento. If you're Northern California, that's the capital of California. It's a nice little small town. And I always really liked drawing. I loved animated movies. I was a little bit of a tomboy, so I didn't get Lion King was a big one for me when I was a kid because I'm right at that age. Aladdin was one of my favorites. And then I started getting into Studio Ghibli stuff when that was sort of in the heyday. I didn't really get into the Disney princess movies until I was really a teenager and I started realizing what animation was. But I do think I talk about this all the time, actually, with even my students and just with younger people in general, because it's something that I think I think we're close to the same age, but DVD special features were really big for me. I really distinctly remember watching the Finding Nemo special features and watching those and Lion King and all that stuff. That was, I think, kind of what made me realize there's people that do this. There are people behind these movies that make these things. And so as I got a little bit older, I started getting a little more interested in animation, as a 16, 17-year-old. I'm trying to remember. I think I started teaching myself Maya when I got to college. So I went to UC Berkeley for undergrad, which is not known. There's no animation. I was an art major, which it's not known for that either. But there was no animation. So I was totally self-taught. I was just teaching myself Maya and just learning everything I could online. There was 3 free rigs you could use back then. I tell my students all the time now, they're so spoiled with all the rigs now. I just always really loved animation. I sort of realized my freshman year of college, okay, this is actually what I want to do. So I switched to being an art major. But honestly, it was I think DVD special features were a really big thing for me for realizing that this is a career. I think a lot of people don't think about it when you're a kid that there's people behind the movies that you like. But and then I went to college and I don't know. You want me to just keep going through school, I guess? Keep going.
So I mean, you mentioned being self-taught. Was that the whole way up, or at some point did you pursue?
I was pretty until college. Yeah, until I finished undergrad. And I actually got an internship at DreamWorks at PDI, or RIP. They're not there anymore, but they had a branch up in Northern California, in Redwood City, and they had a training department, which was when you are hired as a new hire at DreamWorks, there's an entire department that's just dedicated to getting you trained. So I would take roll in the training classes because they would get audited. They got a certain number of, I think, state tax dollars for doing X amount of training. So they had to take roll. So I was taking roll. But that was not a lot of time for it was not 8 hours a day of work. So they were you're the training interns, they can just do whatever they want for the rest of their time. It only takes, a couple hours to do the role. And so they let me animate. So I got to actually learn, it's not emo. It was
emo
before, because
first,
DreamWorks has, I've since used Primo because I went back as an animator. I used emo. And even then I was wow, this is so much better than Maya because I was used to Maya 2009. I was totally self-taught up until I did Animation Mentor. I did a year of it after I graduated undergrad. I was totally self-taught, and you can teach yourself a lot. it turns out. But, I didn't have.
So what types of resources were available to you then in terms of learning? Like where you watching like books or like things online, or did you have any sort of mentor?
Honestly, it was just like, it was sort of the golden age of the blog. So it was a lot of animators had their own blogs. That was big. And Maya used to be free for students. I mean, it's still free for students, I guess, but it used to be like pretty easy to get a free Maya license, which is not the case anymore. But it was mostly just like Googling stuff and like books. I have all the classic books. I've got Illusion of Life and Survival Kit and all that stuff. Yeah, that stuff I bought early on because I was like, these are the books everyone says you have to read, and they are really good. They still are really good. But yeah, honestly, it was mostly just like Googling. It wasn't like, I know YouTube is big now, but I wasn't really looking up like a lot of tutorials, which like now I probably would if I was learning. Like now, if I learned something new, I use YouTube a lot, but it wasn't like a lot of tutorials. I just, honestly, we had like a little group at UC Berkeley of like people who really liked animation. Some people were technical, some people were coders, some people were artists. I'm still good friends with one of my friends who's a really good modeler. And we just sort of taught each other. I mean, there was like, I made a short film. I put it in quotes because it was barely even a film, but we like made a short film together for one of our classes that was not very good. But honestly, it was like a lot of learning by doing and just animating stuff and figuring out why it looks bad and trying to make it look better. Awesome. A lot of that in the beginning. Yeah.
That's inspiring because I mean, I imagine that is difficult to do, but also probably, somewhat liberating in that you can really just kind of learn the things that interest you most.
I didn't know what I didn't know. So it was like you just go and like you can figure out exactly how to make this thing move the specific way, and like it was just a lot of late nights in the computer lab when I was 20.
So in terms of did you know like right from the beginning that you wanted to do character animation, or was it just like the entire 3D like modeling and like rigging and all that stuff? Was that all interesting to you, or is it mostly like I want to perform?
It was definitely always liked animation the most. I think I don't like dislike modeling. I'm not very good at it, but I did. So there was a class at UC Berkeley, which was like one semester, and they teach you the entire 3D animation pipeline. So like you just learn a very, very surface level of each thing. But you go through modeling, rigging, animation, texturing, lighting, all that stuff. And so that was when I was like, oh yeah, animation's the best part for sure. But I always really liked drawing. Like, I'd make flip books when I was a kid, but I was never really good enough at drawing to be a 2D animator. And so I was like, oh, 3D, that sounds cool. Like, you don't really have to know how to draw. Excuse me. And I definitely knew, I was never really attracted to any other part of the pipeline as much because everything was like a little technical. And I just thought animation was the performance part of it was always what I was really attracted to. I did work in games for a long time too. And I always really liked video game animation as well, and I loved video games when I was a kid, and I still do. I still play a lot of games, but yeah, it was definitely always animation for me. I think I knew the performance part was always very attractive to me.
So did you finish at UC Berkeley? Like you graduated like with a degree from there, or was it like?
Yeah, I have a BA from UC Berkeley.
And it was just in like studio art, or what was your kind of primary focus, I guess?
Art practice is the technical. I think I said like, I have like an emphasis in animation, but like that wasn't a thing.
Okay, so now you're at DreamWorks, I guess, with copious amounts of free time. It sounds like to kind of learn emo, I guess it was at the time. So were there any, like at that point did you like plug in or tap into resources there that were kind of teaching you like the character animation like on a feature level, or are you still kind of feeling through it on your own?
Yeah, it was mostly, the training department, like they taught me how to use emo because that was their job. Like they were like, oh yeah, just like take our emo classes. But I was still very new. Like I hadn't even really done any acting. That was sort of the first time I really tried to do like acting, like animation that was actual like a dialogue piece. So it was not good. So it was my first try, but they hooked me up with a mentor who's an animator there, whose name is Ryan Gong, who actually I now work with at Meta. I just talked to him today. He's sort of my animation dad because he was there from the very beginning, and now we finally, 13, 14 years later, whatever it is, we're working together again, which is really exciting. But they hooked me up with him, and they were like, they actually didn't have chat. Like they were just about to start using Google when I started there, and so there was just like a Linux-based messaging system called Sending a Hey, but it wasn't, you couldn't chat back and forth. You literally just send a message and it would pop up a window on the other person's computer and they could send you one back. It was not, it's like, that was how I used to, I think I'm not that old, but like, I think telling a kid that now would blow their mind. But yeah, they would just send, like, send Ryan a hey whenever you're ready for notes. And so I'd like walk up to the 3rd floor just because we were in a different building. And yeah, I would like just walk around and be like, oh my God, this is really like making the movie. And it was like Madagascar 3 was the first one that came out when I was an intern there. And they were, the animators were like, please don't make us make another Madagascar movie. They were all so done after the first ones. But yeah, they hooked me with him, and he just gave me really good notes. I mean, he taught me a ton, but it was really mostly just me learning the software and just kind of like learning my first inklings of like acting and performance stuff. But I just been self-taught up to that point.
What was that like? So like when you're kind of like in a vacuum, just teaching yourself and just taking in information, a big part, like once you're working in the industry, obviously is notes. Like this is a notes heavy field, and you have to have like thick skin and be able to like take and parse notes, like kind of understand the spirit of it and then kind of turn it around and then iterate on that. What was that transition like? Like going from, when you're, I assume when you're just kind of making things on your own, everything's fine and there are no notes. You just kind of like, oh, this is fine. What was it like to start then getting feedback from someone who kind of knew what they were talking about? Like, what was that?
It was, it's definitely an adjustment. And yeah, that was sort of my first exposure to it, because I was like, I mean, I think I knew that you like showed blocking. Like I knew that you didn't just like finish an animation and then it was done. So I think I did show him like blocking, and then he would give me notes. So I did get, I think they probably explained it to me. I imagine like Jason Schleifer he was the Hoka at the time. So I met him and he was really great. And they all gave really different notes, which was, I really distinctly remember, like Ryan gave really different notes than Jason. Jason gave like very performance acting based notes, and Ryan's were like a lot more sort of not animation based, but kind of like just like, oh, you need like a slow in here and like eyebrow squeeze and stuff like that. Whereas Jason's were much more just about the acting. And so it is an adjustment. Like that's like one of my first lectures I give to my students when I teach is like, this is how animation feedback works. Cause it's very, I think people don't realize it, that it's such an iterative thing. Even my husband, like he was a video game developer. He's now a therapist, but we watched there's that Frozen 2 documentary on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Where they chronicle like sort of some shots that are going to the end of the movie and how crazy it was. And they showed dailies, like they showed a dailies. And he was like, this is what your job is? They just like tell you to change stuff all the time? I was like, oh yeah. He's like, I would hate that. I was like, yeah, it's not for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that really is like such. That's what it is. Like that's the job.
Yeah, he was like, wow, I've never thought about it, but like, yeah, you have to just like do something and then like redo. You just have to like redo stuff a lot of the time. I was like, yeah, that is how it works.
Yeah, just did it today.
Yeah.
Showed some blocking this morning, and got it.
Yep,
shoot up.
Yep. Yeah, same thing. I had to I'm spending tomorrow redoing other stuff. So.
Okay, so that's awesome. I mean, that part of your journey was actually really quite directed. So what? How long did you stay at PDI, or like what was your, I guess, the next step in your journey?
Yeah, no. So I graduated, I finished my undergrad in 3 years. So I graduated a little bit earlier than like most people my age. So I moved back home. My parents owned a restaurant, so I was just waiting tables at my parents' restaurant. So I'd done 2 semesters of the internship at PDI. So that was my last year of school. And then I knew like Animation Mentor was sort of, I don't know how new they were. They weren't super new, but it was like, they were like the only, like Anim School didn't exist yet. There wasn't really anything except Animation Mentor online. I just saw some ads for it, and it was like their original rig, which like looking back now, I'm like, oh man. But I remember seeing it at the time, I was like, oh, that's so cool. It looks like a real character from an animated movie.
Bishop. Yeah. It was all Bishop.
Bishop. Yeah, exactly. It was all Bishop all the time. And so I signed up for Animation Mentor, and it was just waiting tables, living with mom and dad for a year. And then, I finished, I never got to acting in Animation Mentor. I finished like the first 3 classes, I think, which was, a year about, because they're like 12 weeks. Yeah. And I just started class 4 with Nick Bruno, which I only talked to him once. It was like our one class we had. So there's no way he remembers me because this was 13 years ago and we spoke once. But I specifically remember taking it. I was like, everyone's like, he's really hard. Like he's like very tough with his notes. I was like, hell yeah, I'm sending up for that guy. I unfortunately didn't get to take the class because I got an internship at Telltale Games, which was my first job. Actually, my friend, the modeler I was talking about, she was a modeler there. And she said, oh, we're hiring for an animator. It was an actual animator position, not an internship. She's like, I'm going to use this. She's like, send me a reel. I'm going to put you up for this. And like, I just had student work. You know, I had my DreamWorks stuff, which was not very good. And then I had just my stuff from Animation Mentor, which was just body mechanics, which Mike Stern is actually one of my teachers he's my last Animation Mentor teacher for body mechanics. Yeah, I just had body mechanics and like some bad acting. And so I didn't actually get the job. And my friend Megan was like, some other guy got it. She's like, okay, I'm just going to go ask the art director if maybe we'll just hire an intern and like in addition, which like they weren't going to, but she just asked and they were like, oh yeah, okay, we liked her. Yeah. I mean, she's green. So we were going to hire her for the actual job, but we can hire her as an intern. So like, thank you to Megan. She got me my first job and kicked everything off.
Nice.
But yeah, then I was an intern there for like the summer and then I got hired there full time and I was there for 2 years. That's actually one of my longer jobs, my first job.
Okay, nice.
At the end of the day. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So what was it like, I guess then like transitioning into a production environment, like actually producing something for the product that they're making?
Yeah, it was definitely, I mean, it was an adjustment. I think the funny thing was, I think I was the only woman on the team at Telltale. There were only like 4 or 5 of us. It was not a big team of animators. But they were like, oh, we need to give her all the girl stuff. We need to give her all the girl animation. Because it's just a lot of stuff like that, they're like, yeah, we don't know how you move if you're wearing a skirt, stuff like that. I was like, okay, that's fair. That's fair. You're not going to shoot reference for that. Yeah, it was definitely different. It was also like a little bit, not super technical, but I did sort of have to pick up, there was some just like game engine stuff that we had to learn how to do. And so being able to pick up that stuff was helpful. And honestly, just like the thing was one of my mentors at DreamWorks. He wasn't an animator, but he was the head of the training department. He's like, you have a 15-minute rule. Anything that if you're blocked on something or you can't figure something out, spend 15 minutes on it. And then if you still can't figure it out, ask somebody for help. Mm-hmm. That is a really good rule for anybody, for any job.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a good thing that I learned as an intern at DreamWorks that I then took. And I was like, yeah, don't just struggle with something for like 2 days and not ask anybody for help.
Yeah, I'll suffer in silence. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
That's good.
So yeah, it's definitely, Telltale was not like a real high fidelity, like quality bar. Like I really liked working there and I met my husband there. It was really good. It was a really good place to work, but it was not a super high quality in terms of animation. Really what we were doing was creating animation library that they would then pull into the game like procedurally. So we weren't really doing anything like by hand that it's just what
So
play those games, what they look like.
Yeah. So because they're kind of story based, right? But were you doing like kind of gameplay cycles or more like cinematic type? Like
it was all moments. Cycles and loops pretty much. Okay, so we would basically make like, here's the animation of this guy needs to like, there's a specific shotgun that they have in the game for this chapter, and he needs to like, have all these animations that cycle, hook in and out of each other and loops and cycles. It was nothing that was like specific. We were supposed to keep it generic, basically.
Yeah.
It was anti-specificity, basically. So after a couple years, I was like, this is boring. it wasn't that it was boring. I mean, it kind of was, but it was like, I'm not learning. I don't feel like I'm really like learning anything new anymore. It just feels like it's kind of doing the same thing over and over again.
So when did you, what was the catalyst of your transition away from there? You mentioned being there 2 years. Like what was your next step and kind of what brought that about? Like,
honestly, they paid really terrible. And so I think I just like applied for some jobs. You know what? No, one of the producers left and she was like, hey, we're hiring an animator. And so she helped me get hired at Ubisoft San Francisco, it was for the South Park sequel. So they'd already released the first South Park game and they were doing a second one. And Matt and Trey, the South Park guys, wanted a studio in California, or at least in the same time zone as them. And they were working with Ubisoft again. So they were like, okay, we have the San Francisco studio. We can like turn that into the dev studio for South Park, because it actually originally that studio was the people that made Rocksmith, which is like the game that teaches you how to play guitar. So it was like half Rocksmith people and then half like they kind of cobbled together this studio for the South Park game, which I think they're still there. They might have other. I think they're working on like some shooter now. But yeah, that was my next gig, that was interesting. I mean, I got to meet Matt and Trey, which is cool, and I got to actually go down to the South Park studio and like train with the head of animation on the show for a couple days, which was really fun. He was really cool. That was like, and you think, oh, no, it's South Park. Like, no, there are some really talented artists on that show, and if you ever watched the documentary about how they make it, it's like SNL. They make it like up until the Wednesday that the shows do, basically. So they all have to work really, really fast and be really, really adaptable. So was
the game in the same? I assume the same style as the show. I'm not.
Yeah. So that's why they sent me down there, because they're like, you need to learn to do. There's a lot of like pretty specific rules they have about like whenever the mouth changes, because they're emulating paper cutout style. So whenever the lip sync changes, you have to move the head, because that's as if someone was like putting a new piece of paper on the mouth. The head would move a little bit, and so that's something you'll notice. If you ever see like,
so it's all done in the game. You're animating all in Maya.
The game. It was funny because they made us use this engine called the Snowdrop engine, which was like a really, really high fidelity, super realistic looking engine. I think they bought it for like a Tom Clancy game, or it was something. It was just like the best graphics you could possibly imagine. And they're like, okay, now you guys got to make a 2D South Park game in this. And we were like, this is not built for this at all.
Yeah.
Like we should, it would have been easier if we just used Unity or something like that. But they spent all this money on this engine, so we had to use that. But we did, we animated a Maya, and then someone else hooked everything up in Snowdrop, because I didn't thankfully have to learn how to do that. But that was, I think, that was just it. The project was a mess in a lot of ways. I actually didn't stay for the entire production, but yeah, it was really fun.
Well, yeah, other than it, and it seems like it was an enjoyable experience. What would you say? Because I love kind of looking back on the journey and kind of seeing like at every step along the way, every kind of checkpoint, what it is that I think I kind of like learned or like gained or like grew from that. Like, so what are there any things that kind of stick out that you kind of took from learning to kind of work in that really limited style?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely like you could just do a ton, because it was really fun. I mean, it's like, it's a very limited style of animation, but you can kind of do, it's like, kind of, we'll get to this, but like eventually I went to work on one of the Lego movies, and that's really fun. It's like, it's just blocking, like everything's just blocking. Like there's no polish. Obviously there's no polish. It's not like their faces are just eyebrows and the mouth shape. So it's like, you can just blocking, which is kind of the fun part in some ways. And so you just do a ton of that. Like my polish skills didn't get any better when I was there. That's not, I mean, I was working on my personal stuff at home, but in terms of work, yeah, it's definitely just like getting through as much as you can, as fast as you can, because there's just a ton to get through.
Well, so that's a good point, because you mentioned that you obviously worked in games for a while and enjoyed working in games, but that you mentioned at the beginning the kind of behind the scenes things from Finding Nemo and Disney films or whatever. Did you have, I guess, as I guess your North Star or whatever, kind of like a dream job? Was there like a specific studio you were like hoping to land at, or like was there? And we'll get to this obviously, but as you were kind of like finding your way through the industry, was there something that was kind of calling you in terms of like, oh, I want to? Yeah,
I mean, I always Pixar movies. I always thought had like the best acting and the best story. Like I really like DreamWorks movies. I always thought were really funny. Like my dad to this day talks about how much he like still loves Shrek. It's like, and he like does not really like movie. He's not a big like movie person, but like Shrek and Toy Story, he's still like, yeah, those are good movies. It's like one of the few movies that he's seen, few animated movies. But yeah, I always really, really wanted to work at Pixar. I mean, honestly, and I've kind of got to do it. I like kind of wanted to work everywhere. I wanted to do Disney. I wanted to do DreamWorks. I wanted to do Pixar. So so yeah, it was kind of, my mood board was full of all of them, I think.
Well, that's good. You kind of manifested a broad, diverse set of experiences. And so I find that fascinating because I've kind of worked a lot of places too, but not around like the majors as much. But I have had on a number of guests who've kind of touched all sort of the major kind of Western CG feature animation studios. And I find that they have really unique perspective, kind of having seen the slightly different cultures and workflow and mindsets that kind of permeate at these different places. And so it's always interesting to sit down and talk to people who've kind of, seen behind the curtain of all these different places that have created all these films. And because they all do it a little bit differently, but it's like, it's like different restaurants. It's a little bit different everywhere. It's all food at the end of the day, but everybody kind of has a different process. And
all the titles are a little bit different.
Yeah. Okay, so that's cool. So then you said you didn't finish, I guess, on that production. What's your next step? Keep us going on the journey.
So after Ubisoft, I went to Toys for Bob, which they made. I don't think they're making them anymore, but they made the Imaginators. I worked on one of the Imaginators games, which was like the game where you had to buy the toy to unlock. So parents hated this because it was just like your kid wanted the new toy. So you had to buy the specific toy to unlock it in the game. So there was like hundreds of playable characters. It's like kind of like Pokemon, but you had to buy a physical Pokemon to unlock it in the game. But you could play as each of these different characters. So that was really fun because I got to like have two of the guys that I owned. So like I got to do all the like locomotion cycles and animation for them. And like all their attack animation, they had these when you bought the toy and like unlocked it, I forget, because I know Disney Infinity kind of stole this idea and like they had the same thing where you had to buy the toy. I forget if you like put it on the control. I forget what you did to unlock it. It was something kind of cool. Anyways, when you unlocked it, there was a specific animation that played, and so it was like their little unlock animation, those are super fun. So I had like a couple, and I lost them in a move, and I'm so sad because I had my little toys, and I don't know where they are anymore, and I'm so sad they got lost somewhere between here and Vancouver probably. But yeah, that was super fun because you got to like own it, and you like worked, like you were paired with a designer, and so they would like, you'd work back and forth with them on like getting the timing exactly right and all that stuff. So that was really fun because that was like the first time I got to work on like a game with like combat, like that you control, because the South Park game was turn-based. And so this was fun. So you got actually like when you press a button, like they do an attack. That was like the first time I got to work on a game that actually had gameplay animation like that. So that was super fun. And I learned a lot. That was just like that was a contract. So after that was wrapped, we were done there. But that was super fun. I got to work with Megan again, which was great. That was great. Everyone there was super nice.
So all of these studios are still like in the same, like the Bay Area, basically, right?
No, they're up in Nevada. They're actually really close to where Telltale was.
Okay.
They're up in Nevada. I'm pretty sure they're still there. I think they work on like the Call of Duty games now, I want to say.
So you're not yet having to kind of hop I know sometimes the industry can be kind of like itinerant where you're having to like go all over the place.
That was my joke before I started film. I was like, I worked at every game studio in the Bay Area, basically, except for Crystal Dynamics. I never worked at Crystal Dynamics, unfortunately. Maybe one day. It's still on my list. But they're down in the South Bay. But
were you at EA?
But no, never. Okay, not all the ones in the Bay Area. Not EA either.
I interviewed there, out there that way once. But okay,
nice,
cool. Good. So all right, so we're at Toys for Bob. I know you. Yes. I looked at your resume, IMDb. It's so long, so we won't.
I'm running out of space. They say never make it more than one page. I'm like, I'm gonna run out of space at some point.
You start just compressing and leaving out some or whatever for shorter contracts or whatever. But okay, so after that, let's I guess. Just in the interest of time, because you've touched a lot of things. It sounds like you were in games for a while. When did you make the kind of leap over to what was your kind of first feature work?
I was in games. I was in games for 4 or 5 years, and I was like, and as I said, I never like formally took any acting, like animation acting classes. So I was like, I should probably do that because I don't really know what I'm doing, and I want to work in film, and I need to have acting on my reel. And so I took some classes at Animation Collaborative with Victor and Aaron, who Victor Navone and Aaron Hartline, who are Pixar animators. I took 3 classes with them, I want to say. And that was a lot. I mean, it's just a lot to animate all day at work and then go home and animate all night. But that was great. That kind of filled in the gap that I've been missing. Victor's stuff especially, I think was really, all his lectures, I still use all that stuff to this day. And yeah, I took Victor's class twice, and I think I took Aaron's class once. And then yeah, I had a completely new reel. And then my friend, I think might have been Ryan actually, he was up at Sony, and he was like, hey, they're hiring for Hotel. Well, actually, I interviewed for Spider-Verse, the first Spider-Verse. I interviewed for Spider-Verse and Hotel 3, and I think Hotel 3 needed people more. And in a way, I'm kind of glad, because I know that I get to enjoy those movies as a fan now, because they were crazy crunch, and I'm like, oh, I like to just like watch those, and it's not too stressful to think about all the crunch. But yeah, I hopped up to Sony for Hotel 3. That was in the end of 2017, and then what did I do after that? Right after Sony. I worked at Method for one summer doing roto animation, just because I needed to find a job. I was overqualified, but I needed to find a job.
So that's very different. So I was going to ask you first, what was the transition like after having been in games for a while and porting stuff to Engine or whatever it is, like then switching to a feature animation pipeline and that workflow, and then we kind of breezed through it, but then now it sounds like you're going to a completely different type of thing in the visual effects world, and you really have touched it all.
Yeah. I mean, the visual effects, like, I know what roto animation is now. Like, my husband and I were watching the Oscars, and there was a shot they showed of Elphaba flying, because Wicked, and he was like, oh wow, I didn't think that was all CG, and I was like, oh no, that's probably a roto shot they just did for her cape. Like, that probably was her singing, and they just did the roto animation for her cape.
Oh, so, yeah, I know the shot.
Stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah. And I was like, no, I think that was her on the harness actually singing. But he was like, oh, I didn't think that would be all CG. And I was like, well, I actually know. But I did one summer. I did roto animation, which was very boring. The people were very nice, but it was very, very boring, tedious work.
So was that so when you went to Sony, you were up in Vancouver? Or
Vancouver, yeah. I was in Vancouver for 2 years, almost exactly, yeah.
So Method, you were at Method Vancouver?
Yeah, I was at Sony, Method, then I went to Animalogic on Lego 2, and then I went back to Sony for Angry Birds and Over the Moon, and then that was my last show in Vancouver.
So what was it like working with Glenn? I know we're jumping around a lot now.
It was amazing. Transitioning into film, it's just like, I kind of always wanted to do it. And so I do still remember my very first shot I showed on Hotel. I just like showed the wrong camera because I didn't know how to like submit a play blast correctly. So I just showed like my perspective camera instead of the actual shot cam. And they were like, well, it's all right, it's your first time. So I did completely mess up my first dailies, which was very embarrassing. Transitioning into that, it was funny. They gave me some little insert shots to start off, and then you got bigger and bigger ones. And then I stuck around Vancouver for a little bit, and working with Glenn was amazing. The Anim Soup on Hotel was the Anim Soup on, he was my lead on Hotel, and then he souped, Sasha souped Over the Moon, and so he was like, I was there for Angry Birds. He's like, do you want to come work on Over the Moon? I was like, oh my god, yes. Yeah, so meeting Glenn was amazing. He was so nice. He's just like the nicest man. He would come up like once a month up to Vancouver from LA, and so it was really great. Yeah, he just would draw over everyone's stuff, and it was like we would all just be like silent watching him draw on dailies. So it was just like, it was really amazing. It was, he made everything look really appealing. Yeah,
he's known for that.
Awesome.
So okay, at this point you're doing the thing, like you've kind of made it to the what you were hoping to do. At what point, I guess, during all this, so I know you mentioned a couple of times already teaching, right? At what point did you kind of transition or step into that role in conjunction with obviously doing the day job?
So it's funny. Actually, I mentioned when I was in college, I took this class where they teach you the whole animation pipeline, and I actually ended up teaching that class like my junior year. I just taught the animation part. So my friends and I taught, my friend who was a modeler, Megan, she taught the modeling part. I had another friend who was a rigger. So I taught the animation part. So I believe back then taught people who were like, 1 year behind me. But that, it was just super, super basic, but I really liked it. Like getting to see things like click for people was really cool. And then obviously I went to Animation Mentor. I did Animation Collaborative. So as a student, I got to experience sort of the workshop-y style stuff. So I started teaching at Annam School, I want to say like a year into Pixar. So like it was like pandemic times. So like 2021, late 2020 maybe. And yeah, I was like, all right, I feel like I finally got a handle on things. Luckily, I just taught the first class. So I was like, okay, I can like handle this. It's just bouncing balls and, ball of tail exercises. And so that was really fun. Yeah, I actually really like teaching like just the fundamental class. It's really fun. The acting stuff's fun too. Like, you can give someone 40 minutes of notes on that stuff. But yeah, the fundamentals class was really fun. So I taught that for like a year and a half, and then I've actually just struck out on my own, and I'm now doing sort of my own little side gig teaching, which was
awesome.
Really fun.
Yeah, I saw that.
I didn't like that we had to grade people. It always stressed me out, and I didn't think it was useful, and it stresses students out. So I was like, I'm just gonna do this. No grades. We're not doing it.
Good.
So yeah, I think it's a better fit for me, anyways. But yeah.
Awesome. Love it. Okay, so was Over? You said Over the Moon was your last film at
that was my last show
Sony.
In Vancouver.
So did you come? You came straight from there to Pixar? Was that the next?
Yeah. Okay. March. I started March 2nd, 2020. In person at Pixar.
I feel like my last day in the studio was I would say March 6th. I wrapped on Soul.
Yeah, and, it was. I think.
And I was like one of the early people to roll off. Yeah, and then everybody else started. Packing up.
It's so funny because my husband like was following the COVID stuff actually like really early, like into December, and he was like, so he was way ahead of like everyone on the news, and I was telling him, I was like, oh yeah, they said like we're gonna go home. But like should just be like 4 weeks, and he was like, it is not going to be 4 weeks. And I was like, I don't know, we'll see. And then he was totally right.
Yeah.
But no, it was. I was in for, I think it was a week and a half or 2 weeks.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, because like you literally didn't even remember, but yeah, we were next door neighbors for those 6 days.
Yeah. No, I was like, I think it's just a blur for me. I was like, yeah.
Because you were in with Selene, I think, after Mikey.
That's right. Yeah, I talked to Selene like twice, and I was like, okay, bye.
Probably long enough to get the Taz, new person Taz thing. I don't even know if they were still passing.
I didn't even get my bar night.
Oh yeah. So it's a service. Yeah, at the night.
Jen was like, we're gonna do it. She's like, we're gonna do it in a couple weeks because I think some people got laid off or something, and so we were like, we're not gonna do it this week. And I was like, okay, in a couple weeks, and then I never got to do it. It was very sad.
Well, okay.
Tell Magita I want to come back.
I'll let her know. Yeah, we'll get you a sticker to come through just to
yeah.
Anyway, okay, so that actually brings me to one of your side claims to fame, right? Tell us about your hugely viral post. Your 10 years ago, one day. Today I said day one. Tell us what was how did this come about, and how did it it seems like it just was everywhere. Exploded across the whole
internet. It's crazy. Still, like once a month, someone will still message me and be like, "I saw this on like a meme page." I'm like, okay, that's weird. But yeah, I had a photo. Yeah, no, I do. People from high school and stuff will still message me on Instagram. I had a photo that my cousin took in college because my cousin lives in the East Bay. So I was living in the East Bay because I went to East Berkeley, and I forget, we were having lunch or something, and she was like, "Oh, we can like go, I know you like animation, like we can't go in, but she's like, we can go drive by the gates, and like we can just take a picture, if you want, we can take a picture." And so she just like, I hate that I did this because now I'm just like, the people who do this are so cringy, but I like took a picture outside the gates, and I just posted on Facebook like one day because I really wanted to work there one day, and that was it would have been like 2010, I think, and so. I don't know. It might have been my husband's idea. He definitely took the picture. He encouraged me because he thought, he was like, you should do it on the first day. And I was like, that's so dorky. I'm not going to do it the first day. And then he was like, you got to do it on the second day. I was like, okay, fine. Because he drove me that morning. And so he took the photo. I think the caption.
So it's a fake.
I took it. No, but I said that in the tweet. It says yesterday. I said it.
Okay.
But yes, the photo was taken on the second day. It is.
Okay.
I remember, so I tweeted that like right when I got into work, and then I just like my phone just like would not stop vibrating, and so I had to just like put it because I was in like orientation, I was in like class about like how to use Presto or something, and so I was like, I just gotta like mute the tweet, and so I like didn't check it for a while, and then I don't even remember, but I remember the one thing that was crazy was I was getting people like pitching, like people in my Twitter DMs just like pitching their animated like movies, which like I had to just, you're supposed to send a legal. So I just like immediately got to know the legal team at Pixar. They were very nice. It was great. But they were like, yeah, just send us all of these that you get. Like,
that's so funny that they think somebody who literally just started has like the access
I
to
know,
get their script in front of somebody.
It was so funny because it really, when people talk about this, like anything that, I actually had a good experience. I didn't have anyone being weird or like, you know, people talk about like getting death threats and stuff all the time. Like I was a game developer in 2014, so like when Gamergate was happening, if you're aware of that at all. So like I got way worse stuff from this tweet. People were actually like, I mean, again, I muted it pretty early, so I definitely didn't read everything. So maybe people were being weird, but generally people were pretty nice and like encouraging, and like it just was very inspirational for people, which was really sweet.
Yeah.
But yeah, it got like, it's crazy because I got so many followers, which like, I guess people just will follow a Pixar animator, but it's like, I didn't even tweet about animation that much. Like, I guess I did sometimes, but mostly it was just like trying to be funny. I don't really go on Twitter anymore for like the past year, but I am on Blue Sky now.
That's fair.
It's definitely, yeah, it was definitely crazy. I went from like 2,000 or 3,000 followers to 16,000 in like 2 days. Yeah, it was crazy. And then like, yeah, GQ wrote it up. It was, or not GQ, like Business Insight. It was like it was the biggest tweet of that week, I think.
That's crazy. Yeah, it was huge.
I got like people, yeah, like reporters emailing me. I just didn't respond to anything. I was like, this is not news. I don't know. I don't have anything to say about it, so I'm just not.
But no, I mean, you mentioned before, like
it was crazy.
You're kind of, you know, your vision board and manifesting things, and the power of that, the power of having, you know, goals and
there were a lot of people who were like, you manifested this. I was like, I think I just worked hard, but thanks, I guess.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if you don't have a goal or a target that you're shooting for, or like,
yeah, no, it's good to have goals. It's definitely good to have goals. I think there are people who literally think I did like do the vibrations and manifest it, and I was like, well.
Yeah, okay. you got to put in the work for sure.
That way you will.
But yeah, I mean, I think it really is super inspiring. You know, when somebody can visualize something or hopes for something or has aspirations to do something, and then and I mean, seeing that come true, like, yeah, it ignites something in people's own like sense of hope or inspiration or whatever. And I mean, that's honestly half the reason I do this podcast is just to inspire people that like, hey, look at these people who came from all these different backgrounds and all these different journeys, and they all made it, you know, in some version or another.
Exactly.
So if they can do it, you can do it, right? We're nobody special.
Put the energy out into the universe.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Okay, well that's awesome, and I think it. You know, obviously you always get some weirdos in the comments or whatever, but I think it was more positive than negative.
People were generally pretty happy, which is nice.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so let's get into to the nitty gritty a little bit, right? Because at this point, you've been in a lot of studios and touched a lot of different styles of animation. Are there certain types of shots that you gravitate towards the most, like that you're most comfortable doing? And the flip side of that, are there things that kind of scare or terrify you that you kind of avoid or prefer not to do?
Yeah, I would say in terms of stuff that I find exciting, I always have really liked doing like comedy stuff. I think that some people get scared about that stuff because you're like, what if you ruin it? But like, and that is a fear, but like a lot of times it works really well on the boards. And then you just have to kind of plus it. Like generally the joke, and like, it is cool. Sometimes you can find a joke like in the animation that's not there. Like that's cool too. But stuff, I think generally I will, like, if I was to get typecast as anything, it would probably be for comedy stuff. Just because it's really all timing. And, you know, funny posing when that's applicable. That stuff I feel is like most in my wheelhouse. And then stuff that scares me, just like anything really physical with a lot of characters. And anything really like super long. Like I see some of those really long shots. I'm just like, man, like there's one in, there was the one on Turning Red.
Yeah, I got cut. Yeah.
R.I.P. That one, he took it was like 6 months he spent on that. It's like two presidents worth of time on that. And then there's a shot in Megamind that I remember the animator, I think it was like 8 months or so. It was like a really long shot of them, of like Tina Fey's character and with the same character walking. And it was like a really long walk, like Aaron Sorkin walk and talk. Like that kind of stuff, I'm just like, man, that's so hard. It's like you're just signing up for such a long journey.
Yeah.
When you get a shot like that.
And
so
then,
I mean, I've never gotten a shot like that.
Get cut,
you know. Yeah, exactly. Anything that's really physical, or just like a lot of characters. Like I had some shots at the end of Turning Red that had like 10 characters in them, and it's just hard. It's just hard physical stuff with. They're all running, and it was just like, that stuff's hard.
And even the scene. I mean, I've heard rumors that no matter how many characters are in a shot in Primo, it just works fine, but Presto doesn't. And whenever there's that many characters, stuff is just like heavy and slow, and you're like loading and unloading, and you're trying to like figure out efficiencies and like how to even deal with all this. Like the complexity is just a lot. I'm the same. I prefer not to have. Yeah, if it's more than like 4 characters, I'm like, I don't even.
It's just so much to think about. Like, it just can get overwhelming really easily.
So you have, so you've touched obviously a lot of things. Do you have a favorite project that you've worked on? And that can be for either the content you produced or even the team that you were on, like anything?
I think definitely Turning Red is one of my favorites just because I'm half Korean. And so that was like a very personal show for me. And having like all female leadership was really amazing. And I'm sad I didn't get to really come out in theaters, I think. But people still tell me it's like one of their favorites. And I think that was just a really special movie and a really cool movie and a really cool project to have worked on. Turning Red is definitely one of my favorites. I loved also Lego 2. Lego 2 was really fun. The crew was really fun because you can work so fast that we had a really small team. It was like 30 something animators. And we're all in the same room in Vancouver, which was, that's not true. There were some people in Australia, but it was mostly us. That was really fun because it was a super fun team. And again, just blocking, like you could just turn things around in an afternoon. And Dave Burgess was the soup on that, who's a DreamWorks guy. He was really great. I think those two would be, honestly, I've never really worked. I mean, Method was like not that fun because it was just like they stuffed all the roto animators in like a server room. But my team was really nice. But like I've never really had like a really bad team. Like everyone all the other animators I've ever worked with have generally been really nice. But the Lego team was really special. And then I know Turning Red we were all virtual, but it was still really fun, even though it was all on Zoom. I would say Turning Red and Lego I think are two big ones for me.
Awesome.
For sure.
Awesome. So what was you were, virtual, I guess, at Pixar for a while, and then you left and then came back, correct? Weren't you?
I left. I was back for like a minute. Yeah, I came back for like 6 or 8 weeks to work on. They were updating World of Color, and so I helped. Gotcha. They were like taking a Coco shot, and then it was like I think it was Davi's shot, and so I felt bad adjusting his animation, but I had to adjust it for World of Color. So that was, is that all I worked on for World of Color? It might have been. I know there was some Soul stuff. I didn't work on that. I think it was mostly the Coco adjustment. So that was still remote. So I didn't unfortunately get to ever come back in, which was a bummer.
And so you went was it from Pixar to Disney or to DreamWorks?
I went to Disney. Yeah, it was at Disney. Did I go somewhere else? What did I do? I don't remember my own journey. But it was Pixar and then Disney and then DreamWorks. After that, I was unemployed for a little bit between those two. But I was on Strange World, which was super fun. Nobody saw that movie, but
I saw it.
It bombed big time. But it was really
so
really
you
fun.
Worked with Amy was head of animation on that. Was she? Right? Yeah. We had her on in season 1, and she was
nice.
just delightful.
Amy's the best. Yeah, she's super nice. I was just there for. I think they were like, so sorry, like we're gonna have to let you go. I was like, I thought this was just for one show. I didn't think it was gonna like turn into a full-time position. But that was just sort of a hire and fire.
And was that fully remote, or were you ever on site there?
That was fully remote. Yeah, okay. That was fully remote. Yeah, I've toured the studio down there, but didn't get to work there. That was really fun. And then DreamWorks for 2 shows. I was there for Trolls and Kung Fu Panda 4. And I'm sad I didn't get to stay for Wild Robot. This
is so good.
Really wish I could have worked on that one. It was so good. I just like I don't even watch like every animated movie that comes out anywhere, but we watched that one. I was like, and cried at the end.
Did you go to Glendale, or that was also remote? Your time between remote?
That was also remote. Yeah. So
Okay.
pretty much everything. Yeah, I have not worked in an office since Pixar, since the first week of Pixar.
Oh wow. Okay.
I've gone into the meta offices a couple times just for on-sites and things, but yeah, I'm remote for that, which is pretty nice. I'm spoiled. I get to hang out. Oh, my dog's not here, but I get to just hang out with my dog. And my
was Ben Willis the head of Hoka on?
Yeah.
Trolls
He
3?
was the Hoka on Trolls. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've had lots of your super songs. I'm trying to get my white whale, my Moby Dick is still Glenn Keane. We'd love to get him on. So anybody out there listening with connections, he's on the list. We're trying to get him. But,
I doubt he remembers me, but yeah, I hope you get it.
Yeah.
Didn't he have James Baxter on and stuff?
James Baxter was our season finale for season 1, and so I'm trying to figure out a nice juicy season finale for season 2. Yeah,
you'll have to find it. Yeah, I mean, podcasts are big these days. I'm sure you can get it.
But yeah, I mean, I love just sitting down with people and hearing their stories, and so it's just been great kind of hearing so many steps in yours that have kind of taken you all around the world from your house, which is awesome. Like it's cool that there's so many opportunities now remotely to work at all these top studios and contribute to all these amazing films and stuff. It's really cool.
COVID was a terrible thing, obviously, but it's a little bit of a silver lining in that respect that, all these studios had remote work, which was
for sure.
Fun. Not to say that I wouldn't have liked to go in, but it is crazy to think about that I used to go into an office 5 days a week. It does feel insane to me now.
Yeah.
Which is, are you back 5 days a week?
No. We're hybrid. I was even today. I went in because I was showing this morning, and then I came home over lunch.
Nice. That's the way to do it, man. Just come in for daily.
Yeah, so I'm usually in 3 days and home too, which is great. I had my son right during the beginning of the pandemic, a few months into the pandemic, and so it was nice to be home for the whole first 2 years of his life, and now to have that flexibility is really great. But I mean, and so even one of my favorite shows, since I've been at Pixar, was Luca. Had a really great time on that show, and it was fully remote. We were home the whole time, but it still was good vibes, and Enrico was great, and the team was really good, and we had a lot of fun.
I mean, animating is a lot of time you staring at your computer alone. I mean, it's the feedback and all that stuff, social, and being in office can be social, but the brunt of the work is you staring at the computer. So.
For me, the primary difference is at the office I have a standing desk, and at home I don't, and so that helps my back to stand, and so
it's definitely. I have a treadmill. I have a treadmill on my desk, so nice. I actually, I got it because I was I got it because I was I'm working from home. I take my dog for a couple walks a day, but that's it. It's how am I going to get more steps in? And it's great for meetings. I highly recommend it. Yeah.
Awesome. So looking back, and you mentioned a couple along the way, but throughout your journey and your career, who are there any specific mentors that you would kind of point to that sort of had an outsized kind of impact on your journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely Victor and Aaron, they were big. Victor helped me get into Pixar.
Same.
And yeah. So he should get a stipend from recruiting, in my opinion, that guy. But they definitely I learned how to act from them, how to do acting for animation from them, and that was really the big gap that I had. I knew that the best way to learn that stuff was just going to be to learn from someone better than me. And I was and I'm thankful for Animation Collaborative because that was the perfect thing that I needed at that time. Just 12 weeks, just going to focus on this one thing, have some new shots for your reel. To have them and Ryan, he was my PDI animation dad, who I'm so glad I get to work with now. He's been a mentor for quite a while now, and it's I've known him for a really long time. He was my first mentor, and then Mike Stern, he was one of my teachers. Basically all the teachers that I've had, I've had lots of. Actually, I interviewed before I got Meta. I was interviewing at Lucas. And I actually interviewed with Guido Musrelli, he was my very, very first teacher at Animation Mentor. So it's small world, man. You run into these people again, for sure. But everyone, and Robin Powell, she was really, really nice to me when I was an intern at PDI, and then we got to work together again at DreamWorks, which was really fun. But it's been quite a journey. Yeah, I'm really thankful to my mentors. It was, learned a lot learned a lot. Still more to learn.
Well, so one thing I love to do here on the podcast is, hear from just a broad set of voices, right? And I try to be really intentional about that. And I know these this whole way of thinking is under attack right now, we'll say. But I love that this industry kind of includes people from all over the place, from all sorts of different backgrounds, and I think there's value to hearing from all of them. Can you speak at all to and you kind of touched on it that at least for a brief stint at Telltale, you were the only woman animator on the team. Can you speak to your experience as a female in this industry that does tend to skew a bit guy heavy? We've made strides, obviously, and they have great groups like Women in Animation and all these types of things that have done a lot of work to kind of find parity and get more voices in the room, basically. You mentioned the all-female leadership team of Turning Red, which was significant, working with Domi and Win Lindsay and them, and what you all were able to put together on that show. Can you just kind of speak to what that part of the journey has been like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely really important. I mean, I'm still in like every place I worked, it's like many times in the meeting, I'm still the only woman. And I think it even the example, I forget who this was, and it wasn't, I don't say this to pick on the person, but it's like, yes, like everyone's diversity of experiences, all that stuff's great. But like this example I like to show is just like, sometimes it's like physical things. Like there was, I honestly don't remember who the animator was, but he was showing something from Tangled, and it was a shot of Rapunzel like running in a grass field or something. And he was like, oh, it's such an interesting choice that like she picks up her dress before she starts running. And he was talking about like it was an acting choice. And I was like, oh no, that's just like a physical thing you have to do if you've ever had to run in a long dress. And that's like not something a guy would necessarily know. And I thought that was very funny that he was like, oh, it's really interesting that animator like found that. And I'm like, no, that's just something you have to do or you'll fall over. So stuff like that. I mean, yeah, I think it's definitely gotten better. And I hope it will continue to get better. I see a ton, I feel like my student, like from teaching, it's been like pretty evenly split, I would say. I don't know what your experience is with your students, but gender-wise, it feels like it's a lot better than it used to be, for sure. Yeah. And even just diversity of stories. I mean, I think it shows in the films too, of what is popular these days and what gets made. But yeah, no, it's definitely better than it used to be, and there's room to improve, I would say.
Yeah, that's fair. No, that's good. And yeah, we love to see strides in that at all the levels, because a lot of it is getting people early enough and kind of ushering them through. But I have heard stats before, and I'm not going to quote any of them here because I'll be wrong, but that at the student level, yeah, it's literally, I think, maybe even past parity, where there's more females at CalArts and some of these places at the school level. But then when you look at the top, like the executive level, director level, and all these things, there's still obviously work to do. In those spaces, but no, there's definitely been big strides. And I think everybody wins when more, when you have just more voices in the room and you have more, like you say, it's just truthful choices. If what we're trying to do as animators is get to truth, then a lot of times, we have blind spots to what that truth is in someone else's lived experience. Yeah. And so there's so much value to that. That's kind of undeniable. Awesome. So as we're kind of wrapping up and coming to a close, and I know our industry is in kind of a funky spot right now. There's it's been a rough couple of years for sure, with so many layoffs and studio closures and all these types of things. Are there things currently, though, that excite you about the future of the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think the, just some of the stories that I've seen, like Wild Robot was a really good example of just like, a story that felt really fresh, and like Flo winning the Oscar. I think, on the one hand, it's like, is this just going to make executives realize they don't need to spend all this money on animated movies? I hope not. But that, smaller teams and simpler stories. And I think just, getting back to basics sort of in the storytelling and not having to sort of get bogged down. I don't know. I think it's interesting that you can make a movie like Flo, that they rendered it on his laptop and Blender, and, you can use Unity for a lot of things out in Unreal, stuff like that. Like, I think that on the one hand, it can be scary that, anyone can make anything potentially. Is that going to change the industry for worse or for better? I think it's ultimately like for better that more people can be creative. And I think, it's scary with like AI and all this stuff. And it's like, the thing I keep coming back to is that it can't teach you how to have good taste. Like AI is never going to be able to teach you that. You still are the person that determines the output. And so I do think that, like, I don't know, we'll always have that sort of need for human touch. Not that necessarily excites me, but I think, stories that feel fresh like that, like Royal Robot and Flow and stuff like that. I think that stuff is really encouraging, that we're seeing a little bit more of that. And yeah,
that's great. So I guess along those same lines, as somebody who is literally self-taught and thrived by all accounts and all measures in this industry for a considerable amount of time, what encouragement or inspiration can you give to anybody who's maybe just kind of doubting themselves or just kind of struggling right now with the realities of the industry, as somebody who's given inspiration to a lot of people through inadvertently through your meme and these types of things, what would you say to someone out here watching this now who's just maybe just doubting themselves or just needs a little kind of encouragement?
I would say it feels bad, but there is like more animation being made than ever. I mean, in so many different places, like streaming has its pros and cons, but there's just like more animated movies and more shows and more, series, all that stuff. There's more than ever is being made. So there's more work out there to be done than ever before. And so keeping that in mind and just like keeping yourself open, the fortunate reality is like I had to do it. Like I did have to go to Canada to break into film. Like if you can, I know can't be true for everybody, but like if you can be open to moving abroad, potentially that can be a really good option. And it's kind of fun to live in another country for a little bit. Though I still think Celsius is a bad temperature measurement. Fahrenheit forever. Kilograms I'll give you. Grams, that stuff makes sense, but no. Kilometers also stupid, I'm sorry. But yeah, I would say just like, be open to going abroad, just in terms of like practical advice. And the other thing I like to tell my students is just like, yes, you have to work really hard, and you definitely your reel has to be to a certain level. Like there is just like a bar that needs to be passed in terms of quality. But like, don't just watch animated movies and play video games. Like definitely watch other kinds of movies first of all, but like also just like have other hobbies, like have a social life. Like that's where you find the stuff that's gonna make your animation better. Like that's where you observe life and see interesting things that people do, interesting, bits of acting, even if it's not acting, it might be something funny that one of your friends does or something funny that your parents do. My big thing is like, you can't just recycle, like a lot of people, if you just watch animation, like it's just gonna be like a lot of recycling the same ideas over and over and over again, if you just play video games. So definitely even just, watch different kinds of animated movies, like watch some anime, watch some, stuff that's outside of even just the genres of animation that you like, and then watch old movies, watch live action movies, watch, expand your horizons in terms of your taste. That stuff's only going to make your work better. That's something I see with a lot of people, just like keep going back to the same stuff. I'm like, no, you guys gotta. But I did have one coworker who'd never seen Akira, and you should watch Akira. That is one animated movie that you should watch. Every animator should watch Akira.
It's really interesting because in a lot of ways, what you just described, that like, living life outside of just like just consuming, is really the thing that's going to keep us ahead of the machines, because that's what the machines are doing.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
It's like machines don't have a lived experience, and so all they can do is regurgitate.
Yeah, they're going to be able to do that stuff easy. Yeah,
they've seen every movie and they're just going to like put it back out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're going to be able to do, a reference to the Matrix, and it's like, okay, that's like, everyone's done that at this point. So I think definitely all of that stuff is going to keep you fresh. And expanding your taste and, keeping all that stuff churning a lot in your brain and not just the same stuff over and over again.
You're a musician as well, right?
I am. Yeah. My parents were musicians. That's how they met. And I've played guitar since I was a kid. I don't play terribly too much anymore, unfortunately. My dog hates it when I play guitar. So
no, as I was preparing for the episode, I was Googling and searching you and stuff for that.
Yeah, you can find some music
or whatever
if
it was.
you want to use your Google. Okay. That's a great thing. Yeah, pick up a hobby that's not looking at your computer. That's one thing. I've just recently gotten into woodworking, and that's like been such a fun thing to like not be at my computer on the weekends and go out and build something with your hands. And it's tedious, just like animation actually. So it does tickle that same part of your brain.
Oh, masochist.
I only like hard things. So. Yeah, exactly.
Unforgiving, unrelenting work. Good.
Yeah, you spend 3 hours and you've done one side of something, it's just like animation.
And then find someone to give you notes on it just to make sure you're
exactly.
too complacent. With
exactly.
Good. Okay, so I guess we sort of touched on this, but outside of animation, like what had you not gone into animation and pursued this career? Are there other careers you could have seen yourself kind of thriving at or enjoying?
Ooh, that's a good one. I actually do think about this a lot. I actually have also somewhat recently gotten into photography. And I was like, in another life, I might have been like a nature documentarian or a nature photographer or something. That would have been really cool. Cause I really like hiking and all that stuff. And it's like getting to like put those two things together. And then my other answer to this is usually that I might have become like a dog trainer because I really like training my dog to do tricks and stuff. I say that as if he can do anything impressive. It's just basic stuff. But we hired a trainer when we first got him, and I was like doing all this reading. And she was like, wow, I'm very impressed that you like know this book. And I was like, oh yeah, it's actually pretty interesting. Like I might have done this once upon a time. Because I love dogs.
Outstanding. Yeah. Great. Well, Janel, thank you so much. This has been great. I didn't know most of this about you. It was, like you said, our time together was so passing and brief that we hardly remembered it. But it was great sitting and getting to pick your brain and hear about your journey. I'm sure all the listeners were inspired as well. So we're so grateful to have had your time. Thank you for being generous and open and vulnerable with us. We just really appreciate it. Thank you, all the listeners, for sticking with us, and be sure to go back and check any of the earlier episodes if you haven't. Like and subscribe. We've got many more coming your way, as well as hopefully trying to land a biggie for the finale later in the year. So we're putting feelers out there trying to make it happen. Ooh. So thank you all again for your time, and we'll see you here next time. CG Riff. Bye.